This is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show. Your war room for insider news and draft analysis from deep within the confines of Cowboys headquarters at the Star in Frisco.
The Dallas Cowboys select T.D. Lamb, wide receiver.
And now, your hosts, Dane Brugler, Jeff Kavanaugh, Kevin Turner, and Kyle Yeomans.
We are just 55 days away from the NFL Draft as we continue on this long offseason journey that is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show. It's a brand new Thursday edition. We're glad you're along with us here on DallasCowboys.com. Kyle Yeomans alongside Dane Brugler, Jeff Kavanaugh, and the great Kevin K.T. Turner as always here on this Thursday. Guys, we're starting to get close. We talked about it on Tuesday with the other group of guys, but the Combine now should be, quote-unquote, in the rearview mirror, but there's still a lot of information gathering to be done because Pro Days are on the horizon, Dane, and it continues to be an offseason and a draft process really unlike any other.
Yeah, that continues. We had the Combine list come out this week, which is interesting because it means not quite as much this year without having the Combine. Now, it'll mean something because, in terms of the medicals, that's something that will be funneled through the process. And then, B, it gives us a better idea of some of the players that a lot of NFL teams are looking at, and some of the players that maybe they're not very high on. And, we have around 30 non-combine guys get drafted every year, and that'll probably happen this year, even though it is a little different. But it's just everything's unprecedented as we kind of work our way through. We got Pro Days going to be starting up here next week. And those are going to run all the way through April. And, just talking to people around the league, how it's going to work, it's really interesting. They're going to kind of break it up into regions, and just with how the scouts are going to travel to these pro days, just really interesting as they try to navigate through all this. So, we're still going to get all the height, weight, speed. We're still going to get all the agility numbers. It's going to be weird because we're going to be hearing a lot of numbers coming out of, workout facilities too. And, some of them are pretty close. Some of them are probably bogus. And so, hopefully these guys choose to run at the pro day and don't just rely on what they're doing at their facilities. So just a really, really interesting part of this weird draft process.
Jeff, how tough do you think it is to kind of balance those two? Because in the past we've had kind of that easy comparison between these players, and sometimes even getting to see them back to back and getting to see these different workouts, and then all of a sudden you don't have that and you have to go by region. You have to break it up across the country, and now it's tougher on these scouting departments to really kind of compare guys, especially whenever it comes to the same position.
Yeah, and I think the only tough part is that it's not as standardized because it's not all at the same place on all the same things. And maybe if you're talking about electronics and lasers, teams are going to be comfortable with that anyway. But I've seen numbers that are coming out of the workout facilities where guys are training, and I just kind of grin. Like, everybody's super fast, everybody's incredible, and I'm just like, all right, yeah, okay. We got handheld timers that are going real well for you guys. So I think the challenge is that it's no longer going to be. I mean, I guess, like, Dane, it's still going to be standardized, right? Like, they're not going to be hand timing at the, like, look, scouts will, but we're going to get standardized numbers off of a laser, aren't we? Right?
I don't know, because they're not going to be able to do standardized, lasers at every single pro day. It's just not feasible. And so for just continuity purposes, are they going to do hand times? Probably. I mean, a lot of teams, they use hand times anyways, even with the Combine. They'll, and they do that so they can have apples to apples comparisons with how they time at pro days. So, I don't feel really. I'm not really confident that we're going to have, the standardized part of this process.
KT, do you think it's more of a trust the tape type of year than any that we've seen so far?
Yeah, I mean, my friends Dane and Jeff used to do a podcast that was very popular called Trust the Tape, and there's a reason
why I asked you that question.
It's very popular.
Yeah, like there's a reason that podcast wasn't called Trust the Pro Day or Trust the Combine or Trust
Those
the
names were taken. Those were all taken.
Trust the milk in my fridge after the expiration date. There's a reason they didn't title it that. It's Trust the Tape. I think the biggest challenge comes to your holdouts. More than I know these numbers are important and things like that, but I think when we start talking about people who didn't play in 2020, how are you convinced that nothing changed from who they were in 2019? I think that's where the challenge is. And also, I think my question is, you see all these things like, this prospect he's got a Zoom meeting with the Colts and the Jaguars or whatever. And it's like, do these players get knocked if the players you can't really hear them very well on their Zoom? Like if they have a bad Zoom setup, are you knocking the prospect? Because I think I would have a lot of patience for that.
Iffy Wi-Fi, can't pick him.
What's that poster on his wall behind him? Oh yeah, cross him off the list.
Yeah, he's out. Yeah, no, but he didn't wear a suit to the Zoom interview. It's not going to happen. With all of this being said, though, I mean, there's so many different factors that go into it, anyways, and I feel like we've always talked about it on this show previously, but it's all going to verify what you've seen on tape. It's all going to kind of supplement what you have on tape. So nobody's ever going to, like KG just said, trust the combine and trust the pro days and things of the sort. So that's the positive thing about it all. And even with the opt-outs, it'll be tougher. But the studying is still going on. But Dane, you brought up a really fun thing in our group message throughout the week, and I kind of want to hit this in the first segment, and then in the third segment we're going to hit some offensive linemen, because offensive line is kind of an undersung position in this class, and I think we definitely need to talk about it, especially if you're the Cowboys with an offensive tackle and maybe some later rounds to try and shore up some depth. But I want to talk about a roundtable segment that you had an idea of, and it has to do with three different things. It's the favorite player in the class to study, prospect evaluation in this class that gives the most trouble to everybody, and then your favorite player comp. And I think this will be fun because I know all of these are different. But Dane, since you came up with the idea, I'll let you go first, and then I'll go with KT next, and then I'll round it out after Jeff. But who is your favorite player in this class to study so far?
It's hard to name just one. I think Zach Wilson. I've been a big Zach Wilson fan since the fall. Just his ability off platform to make those spontaneous decisions and to be naturally accurate on the move it's so impressive. Makes things happen. So Zach Wilson will definitely qualify. Kyle Pitts. I mean, I don't know that I could have an answer. For this and not mention Kyle Pitts with just he's a cheat code. It's just watching him make plays over defensive backs, watching him separate, watching him just be a boss out there it's just a lot of fun. So those two guys immediately come to mind. Just talking about my favorite guys to study so far this year.
KT?
Yeah, I mean, I think just to throw out some different names, because those are definitely fun guys. Obviously, Coromilla from Notre Dame is a lot of fun, just the way he flies around. I want to just have a little fun. I want to throw a running back in there. Like Kenneth Gainwell of Memphis was a lot of fun, and just the number of ways he was used, especially on the rare occasion that they would line him out at the X wide receiver and throwing the ball. But like little things like, oh, here's a wheel route. It was just the way they used him a lot was fun to watch. And another one I'll just go into the offensive line. I'm a big Deontay Brown fan at offensive guard. Like, if you want to talk about just snapping the ball and then beating the crap out of the guy in front of you, I kind of like the way Deontay Brown rolls. Like, I kind of want him in my posse, to be honest. Like, if you ever come across him in trouble,
all 365 pounds of him.
Yeah, I think he's a good guy to have on your side. Let's just put it that way. So I'm a big Deontay Brown fan. Watching his film was a lot of fun.
Jeff? Ardarius Washington.
sweet Ardarius Washington, the best safety in this draft class, who's going to get picked who knows where. Like, is he going to be picked in the 4th round, even though he's the best because he's 5'8"? I think that's possible. And then my other guy would be Divine Diablo, because he's got the best name in the class, and nobody talks about him, but he's good on tape. He's just a 200 and almost 30-pound safety, so I think that throws people off. But I think he's a really good player, whether he's going to be a linebacker or a safety at the next level. So I'm going 2 safeties: sweet Ardarius Washington, a.k.a. Safety 1, and Divine Diablo.
Dan, really quickly before we move on, I want to hear your thoughts on Divine Diablo as well, because I liked him going into the Senior Bowl. He was one of my players to watch.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good player. I think he's probably early day 3 guy for me in terms of just where I see him. He is a little bit of a tweener, linebacker, safety, but yeah, he runs well. He's a former wide receiver. That's what he was when he arrived in Blacksburg. So you see that at times with his ability to play the ball. I don't know that he has enough juice to hold up in man coverage or even to make plays on passing lanes and zone. So I'm not 100% sure what I'm doing with him, on base defense, but I think he's going to survive on special teams and think he's just a really quality player that can round out my roster. I'm just not sure what's his ceiling for me. So that's why I have more of an early 4th, 5th, 6th, somewhere early day 3 on him.
So I've got a really easy answer for my favorite player to watch, and it was just because a lot of people maybe forgot just how dominant he was because he was a 2020 opt-out. No, it wasn't Jalen Darden. I'm not going to say that, I promise. I thought about saying it. Jamar Chase, LSU, how about that, wide receiver? I mean, the fact that he was able to dominate NFL caliber corners the way that he was as a redshirt sophomore just was unbelievable to me. And then I was really sad when he opted out because, I mean, it allowed guys like Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle to kind of take over. I mean, even like another opt-out and Rashad Bateman, who came back and then opted out again. I mean, they were the ones that kind of took over college football, but I think the year that Jamar Chase would have had for LSU would have been comparable to any of those, even without Joe Burrow at quarterback, because I think he's just a fantastic player overall. So I think he would probably be my favorite. Now, reversing the order a little bit here, Jeff, who was the toughest player for you to tab this year in the draft class?
Ooh, that is a great question. Some of us don't prep as well for these segments as others, so I'm currently looking at my list of players. Toughest guy, Andre Cisco, Syracuse safety.
Okay.
Because I know there's people that like him, and I know that in theory he's hyper athletic, and I know that he had a ton of interceptions. But then I watched his tape, and I don't think I've seen a safety give up more big plays than Andre Cisco. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Is somebody going to pick him in the top 50 because he's an athletic guy with a history of creating turnovers? Or do you just say, guys, I don't want him because the number of – and this is run plays, pass plays, underneath, deep. Like Andre Cisco's tape, I just kept typing, you're the last line of defense. What are you doing? So I'll say Andre Cisco, who I'm trusting the tape, and I put him in the 4th or 5th round, and I'm sure he's going to go higher than that, but it happens.
Plus, he's coming off the ACL, which is another, obviously that's not as damning as, maybe 15 years ago, but still every knee responds differently. So just something else that is important for Cisco's evaluation. I think you got him nailed, I think, just in terms of, yeah, he'll make big plays, but he gives up big plays. And so I think that's more of a style thing, more of a preference. And what do you want? What are you looking for in your safety? A guy that is a little feast or famine, or you want a more conservative player? I was watching a guy last night, Caden Stearns, the Texas safety. Yeah. That he's the exact opposite. He does not make a lot of big plays, but he also doesn't give up a ton of big plays either because he's just so conservative. And it's just, I don't know that that's my style either as a safety. So it's just an interesting juxtaposition between those two guys.
KT.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's quite a few names, but one I would really want to throw out is Bobby Brown, the defensive lineman from Texas A&M, because you're watching it and when you see the flashes, you go, wow, and then you go, why doesn't that happen more often? And there are plays when, quite frankly, it just looks like he's not trying hard. And I don't know if that's the case. Maybe he's tired. Maybe he was banged up. Those types of things. But Bobby Brown was a very up and down evaluation for me. And when you're talking about putting a guy in your top 100 or maybe trying to get this guy to be a day 2 pick, I'm not sure Bobby Brown was consistent enough for me to take him on, the 3rd round. So I mean, there's a lot there to like. I would definitely consider him in that 3rd or 4th round range. But Bobby Brown was an evaluation. It was a frustrating watch, I guess I'll put. It was very up and down.
Dane.
So I've got a few. And I mean, for those young evaluators out there, I mean, let this segment kind of be a lesson. Don't get discouraged when you watch a player and you're just like, I don't know what to do with him, because it's okay. That happens a lot. Some guys are just confusing, and it's just going to take a lot more work and homework to figure them out. Like for me, Anthony Schwartz is that guy from Auburn. This is one of the fastest humans in this country. He in high school he ran a 10.07 in the 100 meters. Jeff, is that fast?
I mean, yeah, you'd think he'd be on pace to be running in the Olympics in a year or two.
That was his goal. I mean, he ran it at Auburn. He was a 2-sport athlete at Auburn. He set a few SEC records. I think it was 6.59 in the 60 meters. I mean, the guy can fly. There's just no doubt about it.
Like, just real quick, Dane, like when you see high school guys and they're talking about the fastest guys in the country in football, you're going to see like 10.4, 10.5.
Yeah, that's blazing.
Flying. That's flying. 10.07 is stupid.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. He won the silver medal in the 100 meters at the World Championships as a senior in high school in Finland, and this guy is just ridiculous. And it translates to the football field, but it translates speed-wise, but not big play-wise. And so a guy with that type of speed, you would expect all these big plays, either as a return man or the just underneath plays that he's able to stretch out a stride and take 80 yards or just winning deep. But looking at his film, it was just a lot of feast or famine. I mean, he was looking at his.
Bo Nix? Can I just blame Bo?
Well, and that's part of it. That's part of it too. So looking at his tape, of his 117 catches, only 9.4% of them resulted in a play 25 yards or more. I mean, that's not the percentage, the odds that you want to see from a player with this type of speed. But yes, you factor in he's a young player who was also a track athlete at Auburn. So in the off season, he's not training for football. He's not working out with football. He's training with track, and obviously 2 different sports with 2 different conditioning process and preparation. Now that he's football only, is that going to be able to improve? What's his ceiling on the football field? It's a really interesting evaluation because there's a lot of projection there. Where do you feel comfortable drafting him? And then a guy on the defensive side of the ball, Chris Rumpf out of Duke. Really, really interesting because he didn't start playing. His dad, longtime college and NFL defensive coordinator at Florida. Now he's in the NFL with the Bears as their defensive line coach. Really extensive background in coaching at a high level. But he didn't let his son, Chris Rumpf II, he didn't allow him to play football until high school. And so he was a 170-pound junior in high school. And so just way behind in terms of his body, in terms of just football development. Goes to Duke, and the last 2 years, this guy was hard to block. 34 total passes or tackles for loss. But I don't know what to do with him because he's undersized, and he's a liability in the run game. Once blockers get their hands on him, they can shut him down fairly easily. So where are you playing him? Is he a sub-package guy, or can you get something out of him as an off-ball player in early downs? I just trying to figure out his exact role is really tough. I think we talk about gadget players on offense. We don't talk enough about gadget players on defense. We don't use that term for defenders. to me, Rumph is a gadget player. And however you want to use him, I think there's definitely value there. You just have to figure out the right role, the right way to deploy him. Because he has speed. He's got a knack for finding the crease and creating havoc in the backfield. It's a lot of fun to watch, but trying to nail down his exact projection at the next level is a little bit of a challenge.
I like it. Real quickly, I'm going to give my back-to-back, starting with the comp player, or excuse me, starting with my toughest to evaluate, and that's Jason Owe, edge rusher out of Penn State. And the reason why is because I want to love the traits, and I do, and I want to love the film, and I try and talk myself into loving the film, but he also didn't have a sack at all this past season. And I know there wasn't necessarily a whole lot to work with on that Penn State defense. They really struggled on that side of the football this year, without Micah Parsons back there, without some of the other guys like Aguirre Gross-Matos and players that had left previously. But he has every single bit of the tools available to potentially make it and be successful in the NFL. I still tabbed him as one of my top edge rushers, but it was still kind of tough for me to really look at it and say, I think he's going to get to the quarterback in the NFL whenever he didn't have a single sack in 2020. My favorite comp, other than Dane Brugler's comp of Carlos Basham Jr., where he comped him to Marcus Davenport earlier in the year. I love that comp, Dane, by the way, so props to you on that one. I tweeted this out, though. Quincy Roche, edge rusher out of Miami, I compared him to Bradley Anae, and I think Roche is way better than Anae, but I think they win in certain ways. They were both uber productive during their collegiate tenures, and then all of a sudden, Roche, whenever Gregory Rousseau opted out, had a bigger opportunity to be productive, and he ended up having a huge sack year, and he wins with short arms and not a ton of speed, which is exactly what I had written down for Bradley Anae last year. And so I compared those two guys together. Once again, I think Roche is just a better player overall, more polished than Anae was. And with that being said, he's still one of my top 8 edge rushers as well, Dane.
Yeah, Roche is interesting. He's tough to stack in this class because there's so many talented rushers in that rounds 2 to 4 range. He's log jammed in there with guys like Rashad Weaver and Peyton Turner and Patrick Jones. So it's tough to stack him. I don't like him as much as you do, but he helped himself at the Senior Bowl. He showed a little more juice live than I saw on tape, which is good to see. But another guy you mentioned, Owe, not much production. Roche, he didn't have a ton of sack production as a senior at Miami. So he could be a little bit difficult too.
Who was your favorite comp, Dane?
So I've got a few of them. I really like the Trevon Merrick to Jesse Bates comparison, because you're talking about guys tall, linear, a little leaner than you want, and that'll show in the run game. But guys that are proven ball hawks, or they got range, they know how to make plays on the ball. They're probably not going to be first rounders. Maybe Merrick gets in the first round, but I think probably more early second. Kind of like Jesse Bates for a lot of the same reasons. And then at linebacker, Jamin Davis out of Kentucky, who's a day 2 player in this draft. He is a carbon copy, a clone of Zach Cunningham, who out of Vanderbilt went to the Texans. I just think they're the exact same player. It just hit me over the head watching Davis's tape, how similar they were. So those two really stood out as easy comps for me.
KT?
Yeah, for me, I'm going to go a little off the beaten path here. When I watched Notre Dame tight end Tommy Tremble, I was kind of getting Joseph DeGuara vibes. If you remember him from Cincinnati, he kind of lined up everywhere. You could line him out at X. You could play him as the H-back. And I know you can do that with a lot of tight ends, but just kind of the way they moved and the way they played, I kind of had that as my comps that I liked. Tommy Tremble and Joseph DeGuara, I think went the 3rd round, and then he tore his ACL. I think I always get uncomfortable with comps with quarterbacks because there's so much going on at the quarterback level that I'm really uncomfortable doing that. So I don't know. I'm going to stay away from the quarterbacks. one guy, and I do not like his tape really at all from this year. His most recent tape. But I do see the running style. When I watch Chuba Hubbard, I see that kind of upright style that Darren McFadden had. Now, way different. Obviously, McFadden, All-American, first-round pick. Chuba Hubbard, I don't think it's crazy to say that he might not get drafted. But I think he probably goes in the 5th, 6th, 7th round, something like that. But when I watched it, I typed that on my notes right there, like, hey, he's kind of like that McFadden style, but there's a lot going on with Chuba Hubbard. When I watched him, I was not impressed.
Jeff?
Oh, Ardarius Washington, Honey Badger. I don't know if I have to say it over and over again. Yeah, my 5'8" safety, he's Honey Badger, and that's awesome. And the other one is a bad comp. I'm going to throw that out before I give you the comp, just because the size is so much different. But Kadarius Toney, the Florida wide receiver, his tape reminds me of when I was 10 years old, or however old I was, watching Dante Hall with the Kansas City Chiefs, because it's like 3 people will run into each other or run into him, and somehow he's still going, and they're all on the ground. Just the change of direction and the contact balance, and how in the hell did he squirt out of that? So Kadarius Toney reminds me of every great punt returner ever, and he does it while he's playing wide receiver or taking handoffs. But yes, Ardarius Washington, TCU safety, Honey Badger, the end.
I thought you were comparing Kadarius Toney to yourself at 10 years old.
That's what I thought it was about.
The way you phrased it.
I will tell you, at 10, I had wiggle. I was ahead athletically at 10. It was at about 15 that people caught up. So
Did you also want a rapping career like Kadarius Toney? And
I would like it. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
I could go country music or rap. I would go either one, but I'll take. If anybody out there is offering,
I need to update my report on Toney to change my comp for him.
There you go.
Change it to 10-year-old Jeff Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like it. I think that'd be fun. Jeff, I think you're witty and like quick-witted enough to be a freestyle rapper. Like if you had to sit down and write it, I don't know if you could do it. But I think if you're sitting there and just rattling it off the top of your head, I think you could get it done.
I thought so too, Kyle, and then I tried.
You tried? How did that? It didn't go well?
Not well.
Oh.
Well,
That's unfortunate. Well,
no.
I like your comp of Kadarius Toney. I had him with Percy Harvin. That was who I had him tabbed as, kind of, once again, another nice returner, somebody that is lightning quick and shifty. So plenty of comps to go around, and, of course, that's one of the fun parts about the draft is trying to look for those comps, and we just gave a couple of our favorites. We might do this again, Dane. I think we should do this again maybe when we get real close to the draft and kind of go up and talk about it again, kind of our favorites, our hardest since then, and maybe even our comps since then as well. But when we come back here on the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show, time for some Twitter on the 20. We'll do it right after the break.
Sometimes nothing beats a classic. Miller Lite, the original light beer, brewed with great taste and only 96 calories, available for delivery. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories, 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.
We're back with a tasty treat that's sweeping airwaves and taste buds. It's new Dr. Pepper and Cream Soda. Let's take a listen.
Dr. Pepper and Cream Soda's here. A new combo that's music to my ears, okay. Let's play. Cream Soda and Dr. Pepper time. Pour it in a glass of ice.
Ah, music to my ears and mouth. New Dr. Pepper and Cream Soda.
A delicious duet.
Hey, Cowboys fans, if you're thinking about attending a game this season, visit CowboysTravel.com to book your travel package today. Stay at the team hotel, have dinner with a Cowboys legend, and experience AT&T Stadium's exclusive VIP Owners Club. Also, tour the Star, get autographs from your favorite players, and talk X's and O's with me, Mickey Spagnola. The official travel partner of the Dallas Cowboys will take care of all your travel needs. Visit CowboysTravel.com.
There's nothing as unique as our eyes, which is why Essilor pioneers ways to make lenses as unique as you. Verilux for super sharp vision, Essential Blue for protection, and Crizal for freedom from glare. 3 cutting-edge solutions in a single unique lens. So whatever your needs, insist on Essilor. Visit your local Essilor experts and find the perfect lens for you. See more, do more, Essilor.
Sometimes nothing beats a classic. Miller Lite, the original light beer, brewed with great taste and only 96 calories. Available for delivery. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories, 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.
This is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show.
Entering segment number 2 here at the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show. Glad you're with us. Chris Beaton back in studio. We've got Dane Brugler, Kevin KT Turner, the great Jeff Kavanaugh. I'm Kyle Yeomans. Time now for some Twitter on the 20. As always, like I said, Beamer doing work in the back at the SWBC Mortgage Studios. All right, starting things off with a very quick rapid-fire question for you, and I'm going to direct this toward Dane Brugler. Jason Pruitt asked, yearly question that has the 2021 weirdness kind of added to it, but even though there wasn't a traditional combine this year, of course that being snubbed and moved to pro days, who do you see as some of the snubs and surprises from the list that came out of the quote-unquote combine invites, Dane?
Yeah, there were 323 names on the list that they released yesterday. A few of the guys that I thought it was a little surprising they were left off. Running back Spencer Brown from UAB is a good player. A couple wide receivers like Marlon Williams from UCF, DeMonte Coxey, Memphis. A couple of Senior Bowl guys, Bowling Green tight end Quentin Morris, Riley Cole, the linebacker from South Alabama, Tariq Thompson, the safety out of San Diego State. So there were a few. I didn't think any were necessarily egregious. The names I just mentioned are borderline draft picks. So, not a huge surprise, but I thought it's always interesting when you get the combine list and some of the players that are left off, and it's because it just peek behind the curtain. The national NFS, they put this combine on. And they vote on which players they want to see, and obviously teams have their input. So it's interesting to see which players got the most votes to be represented at the combine.
All right. Well, I mean, even in a year like this, to be snubbed from the combine, I feel like it's not necessarily it's not as big of a deal. And like you said in the first segment, there's usually 30 or 40 guys or in between that mix that end up going and getting drafted that did not end up at the combine, and some a little bit higher than others. Let's go to Jeff already answered this question on Twitter, but I want to answer it on the show as well. But Tom Downey asked, what prospect do you not want the Cowboys to draft at 10 out of the ones that are realistic for the Cowboys to draft at 10? And he did say, Jeff Kavanaugh, you're not allowed to say Gregory Rousseau because we knew that would probably be the answer. But, Jeff, who else would you not want the Cowboys to select at 10?
Ooh, that is a really good question. Tempted to say Micah Parsons. But I'm going to say any edge rusher. I just don't think there's one eligible to me to be picked at 10. And Azeez Ojulari is my top one out of Georgia. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's a pass rusher worth the 10th pick.
I think it's a good answer because I'm not even sure what the other answer would be because for me at least, I would be fine even though it wouldn't be my preference. I wouldn't be mad if they drafted Jalen Waddle. Wouldn't be mad if they drafted Kyle Pitts. Wouldn't be mad if they drafted any of these top linebackers.
Slater.
Yeah, it might not be your first choice. You might not love it, but I wouldn't be like upset about it. So, yeah, I think that's a good answer. Any of the edge rushers, maybe Christian Barmore. I think that's a little early for him. I like J.C. Horn, but even 10 feels a little early for him. But I still wouldn't be like be up in arms about it. So yeah, I think any of the edge rushers probably a little too early for them at that 10th pick.
I want to weigh in where they're at 10, if for now, and it's maybe a bad assumption, but if you can assume that 4 quarterbacks are going in front of you at 10, or just for the sake of this discussion, let's say that, then we know that we have 6 players coming down your way, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? Stack that board up. and if you really want to focus on defense, then maybe you can move things around. But like stack that board up, you can easily know who you want, and you will have every scenario lined up. You need 6 picks that you have to deal with right here. 6 players, and you should have 1, 2, 3, 4 scenarios lined up. I think where the discussion gets interesting is if you trade back, and that's where you start pitting Ojulari against J.C. Horn, or Darrisaw against maybe it's Darrisaw against Barmore or Vera Tucker or whatever, however you want to play it. If you're thinking offensive line there, like if there's a trade back and you're in that 17 to 20 region, that's where I think it gets a little more difficult. I actually think it's pretty simple to draft someone you like at 10 when you know that 3 or 4 quarterbacks are going in front of you. I really don't think you can go wrong there if you've done your work and you have it stacked the way that you want to go. And I'm saying that in terms of picking the guy you want.
Yeah, I would say the only problem with that is when you said stack up your next 6 guys. I think my next 6 guys play offense, and I think that that's not ideal for the Cowboys because to me the next 6 guys would be some combination of Penei Sewell, Rashawn Slater, Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith. So if 4 quarterbacks go, I think the 6 next best players all play offense.
Well, at least maybe 7 and 8 might be defense. I mean, Farley and Surtain might be there. Maybe if that's where you have them ranked. My easy answer to this question would be Mac Jones. Please don't ever talk to me about drafting Mac Jones at 10, even if he is the only quarterback available at that point and you haven't signed Dak Prescott. Because I feel like, KT, you're talking about all these big scenarios, but even with the scenarios that are outside of the draft itself in Dak Prescott's contract negotiations and everything that's going on there, if Mac Jones is the presumed pick at 10, I would be livid. I would hate that.
It'd be better than not picking a quarterback if you haven't signed your quarterback.
No, I don't want it. No,
you want to just drift.
I would rather I would kick that can down the road before I would draft Mac Jones.
You know that 100%. Down the road is like the next draft having Keaton Slovis and who knows what else.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. There's a lot of quarterbacks on the free agent market.
Man, that is a bad take on quarterback, Kyle.
I'm just saying.
That is a bad quarterback take by Kyle.
I'm saying we will figure it out rather than having Mac Jones because I don't want Mac Jones really at all. That's my one thing. But I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. I'm going out on a limb to say that I think Mac Jones would be a terrible pick at 10. But I want to go back to what KT was just saying because it is intriguing to me because last year when we were picking at 17, there were conversations about pretty much anybody. And we thought, of course, CeeDee Lamb wasn't even a part of that conversation, and he was the one that fell. I think this could be a whole segment in itself, and we may do this next week. But if we do trade down, or if the Cowboys do trade down, then what are the scenarios? What are those different players? Like you said, stacking up a Horn versus an Ojulari and talking about these different prospects that aren't top 10 prospects but are still really good players. And what would you get in return for maybe the second and the third round to kind of add on to your draft? I think that might be a fun segment we do next week overall, KT. I like where your head's at in that regard. Looking for my page refreshed. This is bad radio. I
do that every day, brother.
I know, it's the worst.
5 hours of it.
Yeah. Adam asked, what prospects get under opponents' skin the best in this draft class? Because he wants Dallas to end up with some dogs, some guys who can trash talk, bring some personality, honey badger-like intensity. Who are some guys that could potentially bring that?
Well, Kelvin Joseph, the Kentucky corner, and J.C. Horn, South Carolina corner. Those are the 2 guys that they don't stop. And it's fun because when you can see that on tape, you just get to imagine what's happening. But those are the 2 guys by far that jump out as they're going to talk to you, they're going to play hard, they're going to make you mad, and then they're going to tell you they made you mad, and then they're going to make a play, and then they're going to tell you they made a play. J.C. Horn, Kelvin Joseph.
The one thing that I worry about with Horn is how much does it go the other way? How much is it, how easy is it for receivers to get underneath his skin? Because he does play so emotional and so aggressive, and that is a tough one. Ooh, I got Gil Brandt calling me. Should I answer it and put him on?
Yes.
Yes.
No, hold on. All right.
Always.
That's
That's a missed opportunity for the show right there.
I wouldn't do that to Gil, but he
I would.
not the Godfather. Come on. So with J.C. Horn, he plays so emotional that it does worry me both ways. Because he will get after it. He will talk. He's not as flashy as his dad, Joe Horn, but he's still, you could see that alpha mentality in him. But I also think it goes the other way too, where when the receiver might have a few wins against him, it starts to go south a little bit. And so, you see that on some of these tapes where some of the receivers, they'll go right at him. They try to get under his skin early, try to kind of set the precedent early in that game. So Horn's an interesting one when you talk about wearing his emotions on his sleeves and being aggressive.
I want to point out something that I'm not sure we've talked about on this show. Like, we all talked about how, hey, J.C. Horn's a little grabby down the field sometimes, right? Things like that. So is Patrick Surtain. No one really talks about it. The big difference, though, is Patrick Surtain will grab a guy down the field and he'll just put his head down and run back, like, and get back and, go into the huddle or whatever. Like, J.C. Horn, this is why he's just so demonstrative every time. He'll hold a guy and then he'll turn around and go, what? Nope. And it's like, hey, man, Surtain, like, very pro about it. Hey, I'm going to hold you. I'm going to grab you. I'm going to grab you. I'm going to grab you. Oh, no, just go back to the huddle. Normal day at the office. I do think it's interesting because it stands out way more when you watch Horn than it does with Surtain. And maybe Horn's a little more grabbier than Surtain, but, like, let's not act like Surtain's not getting his hands in there a little bit. He just has a good way of not showing it after the play and good timing to just kind of pull it back at the right time and not like play to the refs. It's very funny.
The difference is that it's Horn's primary coverage technique.
Yeah.
He does it a lot more.
I mean,
every play.
It happens with a lot of corners, but more so with J.C. Horn. Every time he gets up, he is looking for the official, either to make sure he didn't throw a flag or to complain because the flag wasn't thrown. It's amazing when you're watching him. Every time after a play, he gets up and immediately finds the official for one reason or the other. It's just fascinating with him.
Even with like the grabbiness and the hands, and I've always had trouble kind of deciphering this myself, so I'll pass this question on to you guys. But when does it become a problem whenever there is a corner? Like you're differing even Surtain and Horn here. But when does it become a problem whenever they are handsy downfield? Because it is a technique thing, and it is something that can be taught, right?
Yeah, no, it's a problem when it's in the Super Bowl and the refs want to throw a lot of flags.
True.
Like,
but I'm more of saying
just let it fly.
I agree, but I'm kind of trying to say, when is it more of a draft issue? When are you going to knock a guy for being handsy as opposed to another guy for being handsy? Because everybody's going to be physical in some sense whenever they're in the cornerback position, but what is the threshold of it being a problem and it being fixable from a draft prospect?
I think you just have to figure out, is he doing that because he's incapable of covering, or is he doing that because it gives him an added advantage and he knows he can get away with it at the college level? For J.C. Horn, I'll tell you this, at the moment he's my cornerback number one, and that's while acknowledging that he is the grabbiest corner I've ever studied, because I also see that his athleticism, it doesn't require that. So if it becomes a big issue and he's getting flagged twice a week in the NFL, then you're going to have to take it away. But I also view it as the positive of that's that aggressive mindset. That's that you get nothing from me. Like I'm going to be with you every step of the way. You're going to feel me. I'm going to be here. So unless it's to cover up for a lack of something, I won't kill you yet. It's just a matter of in the league, if you start getting flagged every week, and we can't take it away from you and have you still be good. But I think his athleticism is good enough that it's not required.
I think the other thing too with that is I'd rather give me the aggressive guy and we'll try to scale it back, as opposed to the non-aggressive guy, the passive player, and try to crank it up with him. I'd rather give me the J.C. Horns of the world and we'll manage it and work on it, as opposed to the opposite. So that's another reason why I think Horns, even though he is grabby, I think 5 penalties in 7 games this year, you still feel comfortable with him as a first-round pick.
No, I like that a lot. I mean, that's a great answer. If his athleticism relies on the fact of him being handsy to be successful, then that's an issue. And if not, then hey, it's a teachable thing. And hopefully professional coaches could make an impact. I like that a lot. That's a good answer from both of you guys. Let's go ahead and take our second break. When we come back, there's some offensive linemen that we need to talk about on this show because we don't talk a whole lot about the offensive line, especially on the interior. We'll talk about it next. The Hog Miley's up front when we return here on the Cowboys Draft Show.
Sometimes nothing beats a classic. Miller Lite, the original light beer, brewed with great taste and only 96 calories, available for delivery. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories, 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.
The Cowboys way, where 16 Hall of Famers and 5 championships shows us what success looks like. Where turkey is always the second best part of Thanksgiving Day. Where we are all defined by one single thing, the star. Where we as fans know it's our job to keep the tradition going. Bank of America is proud to be the official bank of the Dallas Cowboys and to support the quest of living life the Cowboys way.
Copyright 2020, Bank of America Corporation.
Honey, big news.
Gary, are you okay?
Oh, I'm not Gary anymore. I'm Jackie Flash.
What?
See, I want the latest smartphone, but the best deals are only for new customers. So, to get a new customer deal, I changed my name to Jackie Flash.
Okay, but the best smartphone deals at AT&T are for everyone, new and existing customers.
That's huge. Then guess who's getting a deal?
Is it Jackie Flash?
Jackie Flash.
It's not complicated. At AT&T, our best smartphone deals are for everyone. Restrictions apply. Visit att.com for details.
Before there was a draft, you could size up a cowboy by 3 simple factors: the crease in his hat, the bend of his brim, and his unbending attitude. A man Stetson didn't just protect him from what life threw at him, it projected a rugged, unstoppable spirit. Stetson hats are still American-made with pride right here in Texas. They're still the unofficial crown of all self-respecting cowboys, and Stetson is proud to be on the field with America's team. Find a retailer nearest you at stetson.com/cowboys.
Sometimes nothing beats a classic. Miller Lite, the original light beer, brewed with great taste and only 96 calories, available for delivery. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories, 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.
This is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show.
Final segment here of the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show. Glad you're with us. Everybody just take a moment and say a quick prayer for Jeff Cavanaugh's phone battery, so that way hopefully he stays with us the entirety of this final segment. But if not, he'll join us next week, I guess, if we can't get him back up and going. But Dane Brugler, Jeff Cavanaugh, Kevin KT Turner, I'm Kyle Yeomans, and well, Dane, there are some offensive linemen we need to talk about. KT, you put this in our group message as well this past week, and I know Jeff has been hitting up on these offensive linemen too. So there's been a lot of offensive line talk, and we're going to go through that quite a bit here over the next couple of moments. But KT, what were some of the topics that you wanted to hit whenever it came to the front five and how it could potentially be shaped out in this draft class?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of things to talk about with these guys, and anytime Jeff is tweeting about offensive linemen, you know that you're in good shape to talk about this. You want to take advantage of Jeff, because generally Jeff doesn't like to talk about offensive linemen with me. So I like that Jeff was sending out some tweets.
Look, there was a time where I didn't need to worry about it on the Cowboys, and so I grew to not care about watching offensive linemen because you didn't need them. And now it might be time to turn that page, so I have to do the annoying work of watching offensive line.
Now, we've talked so much about Penei Sewell and Rashawn Slater. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on those guys today, but I think there is a conversation to be had about what happens after that. And, Dane, I'll go to you. Darisaw is, I think, a lot of people's offensive tackle 3. You start to get Vera Tucker from USC in there. Oklahoma State's Tevin Jenkins. I mean, there's lots of guys. Eichenberg, if you want to talk about him. There's tons of guys. I start to think, the Cowboys' success, I do know, I feel like I know how the Joneses operate a lot. I feel like they feel comfortable taking first-round offensive linemen, and I do think that's in play if they traded back. And I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but if there was a trade back, I still think offensive linemen would be in play. But the other thing that I've been thinking about is if you're sitting there at 44 and you're trading up into the back of the first round or you're trading up into the top of the second round, and it was for a player, who would it be? And I know you can look. The names are limitless, but for me, I start to think about: do they even know that they need an offensive tackle? The answer is probably yes, but they might need a guard just the same way they need a tackle. And I think those are questions they're going to be balancing. And the easy answer is find a guy who can play both.
Yeah, and that's obviously easier said than done. But it's if you're going to find one, I think this is the class to do it. This week on The Athletic, I posted my top 12 offensive tackles, top 10 guards, top 8 centers, and there's a lot of future NFL starters in there, a lot of them, and several of them do have the position flexibility that you're looking for, whether it be tackle guard center. So this draft is, I don't think we talk enough about the offensive line and how strong of a group it is. It's I don't think it's up there with necessarily wide receiver or even edge rusher. I think is up there, corner is up there, but the offensive line is a really strong group. And you could poke holes in these guys. I mean, Christian Darrisaw, it bugs the heck out of me how he just doesn't. He plays for like 90% of the play and then he's good. Just finish, man. Come on, give me a killer instinct here. That drives me nuts. But
that's why I put Tevin Jenkins ahead of Darrisaw on mine, because I think that he plays harder. Like, he wants to finish you. He plays with that mentality, and Darrisaw plays like, this is easy. He gets the job done. He does his job, and he's just kind of like, cool. And Jenkins is like, I want to kill you.
Yeah, and I'm not no arguments for me on that. They 3 and 4 are very close for me. I went Darrisaw Jenkins, but if you flip those, no issue with that at all. Jenkins is so uniquely powerful, and he does have that killer instinct that you want to see more from Darrisaw. Jenkins, a little short-armed, and that worries me a little bit. But I do think both of these guys, I don't see why either of these guys wouldn't be able to move inside to guard if you needed them to. So, we're talking about a trade back situation from 10. Maybe either of those two guys are on the radar. And if they wait until day 2 to address the position, I think there's going to be options. Dylan Radins from North Dakota State, Deontay Smith, East Carolina. Guys with tackle and guard experience who, your football team is going to be better if you draft these guys. Your offensive line depth is going to be better, and it's going to help your entire offense. So it might not be the sexiest pick, but I think it would make sense for this team.
Do you think it would be easier to address the offensive line issues in day 2 than it would be to add safety or a corner or somebody on the defensive side of the football if you didn't go offensive tackle at 10?
Dane, riddle me this. Tell me if you think I'm too early on this, but you talk about having them play both or having the ability to. What if you took Alex Leatherwood in the second round, Alabama's left tackle, that I think some are going to view him as a guard, and maybe he could do both? Is that too early for Leatherwood?
Yeah, I think that's right around what they pick 44. I mean, to me, that's right where Leatherwood should be drafted. Somewhere between 35 and 50. I think he's in that range. Personally, I grade him as a guard. He's not the most explosive guy. He's got a little bit of stiffness in his lower body, and so I think that he's going to be better inside a guard. He played it as a sophomore before he moved back to left tackle as a junior and senior. So we do have some tape of him at guard. But yeah, I think he wants to be a tackle, and so I think he's shown enough that you feel okay with him if you want to keep him outside. But again, I think he's better inside. And again, that's why we're talking about a second-round pick and not a first-round pick with some of his issues. But in the second round, yeah, I think you feel good about Alex Leatherwood.
And the way that they operate is like free agency, clean up holes for the draft. So do they bring Cam Irving back? Do they bring Joe Looney back? Do they add any depth at guard or tackle to make you go, oh, okay, now we just need to focus on tackle? And if you're doing that, you're just focused on tackle, that's where names like Liam Eichenberg of Notre Dame come into play, maybe on day 2. Maybe Samuel Cosme from Texas. Maybe that comes into play. Or if you need a guard, I mentioned him earlier, he's my guy, and he may not fit what they want to do on offense. They might want to play a little faster. But, man, I am a big fan of Deontay Brown. I know I mentioned earlier, and maybe you can get him at 75 in round 3. The other guy that's a very interesting name if you needed interior offensive line help. And who knows how far he'll drop is Landon Dickerson of Alabama. After the ACL, he'll knock him a little bit, but I don't think it's going to drop him too far. So maybe there's a little day 2 value. Maybe a guy who slides a little bit just because he might be a little late to the party. You know, maybe he's ready to start training camp. He should be, at least pretty close to that.
That's a great name because, you know, we know this team in the second round. They're not scared to take an injury guy or a character guy. And Landon Dickerson, that's a great point. I mean, he would be, if he fell to 44, scoop him up. I mean, this guy, the injury history is long, extensive, and worrisome, but he's also an easy first-round talent. I actually like him better at guard, even though he played almost primarily center at Alabama, but he can play both. He brings that culture that you want. His football character is outstanding. On the field, outstanding. It's just you worry about him staying on the field. And, you know, the greatest predictor of future injury is past injury, and he has, you know, more than enough of that. So, but if he's going to be there at 44, it might be worth the risk.
Dane, you say all of these great things about him and about his character and his on-the-field talent and everything, and then you say the injury history and how it's extensive and how it's a predictor, and then I'm all out again on him. I mean, I'm already out because I don't want the same offensive line trouble that the Cowboys had this past year, because that's exactly what it was. It was a revolving door.
A lot of Bama hate out of Yeomans today.
I'm just saying.
No Mac Jones, no Landon Dickerson. What did they do to you?
That's true. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it is just Alabama. I also hate Devontae Smith. No, I'm just kidding. I don't hate Devontae
Oh, no, Kyle, no.
No, he's really good. No, he's really good. I promise.
Kyle, real quick. I got a question for you then. Because if you don't want, if the injury history bothers you there, does round 4 Walker Little from Stanford do anything for you?
Yes, because it's less. I mean, what would we already have had? 4 picks before that? A first-round pick, a second-round pick, and potentially 2 third-round picks. So he'd be your 5th pick in the draft. I would take that. I would take Walker Little at that point.
Yeah, I think he'd be a steal at that point too.
Yeah.
He had a missed opportunity by not playing at the Senior Bowl. He had his invite. He declined it. I mean, that's a big missed opportunity for him. We just haven't seen him on the field in almost 2 years. So, he's a really talented player. It's just tough. He would have qualified for that first segment when we went over guys that are just tough to figure out. And with him, it's just because the lack of sample size and just haven't seen him in a while.
And just to be clear on Dickerson specifically, I still have him as a top 5 lineman. Or wait, no, he is 7th on my list at the moment in terms of interior offensive lineman. He's 7th at the point. So I still think very highly of him, and I think he's an incredible player and an incredible leader. You saw that just from the SEC championship game and the reaction that he had. And then, of course, whenever he came back in and took the final kneel down of the Natty, overall, he was the heart and soul of that offense. But I want to go back to a question, or not even a question, but something that Bucky Brooks said on Tuesday's show. And he said, if you're going to be in a position that the Cowboys are in and you want to get an offensive tackle, go get him at 10. Don't wait. Go get a Duke. Go get a Slater. Go get a Darisaw. Or even if Sewell somehow miraculously fell, I mean, it happens every year. If he somehow fell, get one of these top guys at tackle and then worry about the rest of your team later on. Do you agree with this standpoint from an overall look of the Cowboys? Because, I mean, we have that kind
of... My rebuttal to that would be, well, why wouldn't you say the same thing about corner? You know, why wouldn't you say the same thing about, well, you know, go get, the Cowboys may have a chance to draft the best corner in this class. You know, why wouldn't you say that also about corner instead of, waiting to see what's available for you in the second round? So, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with it. I just think you could say that about several positions for this team and for this class.
Dane, Slater, Rashawn Slater, and Greg Newsome, or Patrick Surtain and Alex Leatherwood?
Slater and Newsome.
Will Newsome make 44?
No, I mean he's going in the first round. The only thing you worry about with Newsome is Yeah, again, a guy that's missed at least 3 games each year, and so he's got a very lean, wiry frame. Him not holding up would be the only reason he doesn't go in the first round, in my opinion. Just a really, I comped him to Kyle Fuller. I think he's a top 4 corner in this draft. It just comes down to, do you trust him to stay out there? And if you do, I think he's going to go in the first round.
Okay, Slater and Newsome or Surtain and Jenkins?
Say that again now. What was it?
Slater and Newsome or Surtain and Tevin Jenkins?
Boy, Tevin Jenkins at 44 would be amazing.
That would be really nice.
Yeah, he must have. He might have held up a convenience.
Whoa! Wow!
If he had been at 44, you got to do your homework and figure out why.
He did something.
It would be a Tunsil thing.
He's still a hoagie.
Yeah, I would still go with the Northwestern route just because
I think I would too.
I'm that high on Newsome, but that definitely makes you think more. I guess Jenkins is really good, and obviously Surtain's a really good player. So that, I mean, if you're choosing between those two scenarios, the draft's working out okay for you.
Yeah, I think you would be happy with either one of those. I would be pretty pumped about either one of those if you're the Cowboys, because you're fixing your offensive line, or at least adding some depth and then adding some potentials there, and then you're turning around and you got yourself a starter on defense in each of those realms at cornerback. But we're running out of time. That's going to do it for us here on the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show. Be sure to follow all of these guys on Twitter. They have great work throughout the week. Dane on The Athletic, of course, KT and Jeff in the local radio markets as well, and they continue to do fantastic work. But until then, until next Thursday, 10 a.m. Central Time, we'll see you next time. For Dane Brugler, Kevin KT Turner, for Jeff Cavanaugh and Chris Beam back in studio, I'm Kyle Yeomans. Thanks for listening to the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys?